Mr. Clements, thank you very much for your time. Firstly, tell us what Extinction Rebellion is.
What Extinction Rebellion is a big question with a big answer. We are change. We are people who are willing to look a child in the eyes and care about the kind of future that child is going to have. I hear what you're saying about South Africa having signed the Paris Agreement, but we also know that the government has not yet declared a climate emergency. We know that we have trouble, and the trouble that's coming is an emergency that we need to react to on every level, from the individual through to the national, through to the global, and that is what we're here to do.
Let me go to what you are saying in your statement. You say climate change data indicates that South Africa is showing, and I want to quote here, signs of heating at twice the global average. Now, while I will not dispute what you are saying, because we've seen some strange weather events in the last few years, what I want to pick up on is who's your source and how credible is the data?
There are many sources. There's a lot of credibility. We listen to people like Professor Bob Scholz from WITS. If you were to go and look at, there's an organization called Scientists Warning. There's a lot of very empirical data that is very compelling evidence. And we see it around us. We see what's happened in Beira. 90% of the city's homes being wiped out and yet to be rebuilt. We can see we've got towns running out of water. You know, when you talk about global warming, it doesn't sound very serious. You know, something just being a little bit warmer, 2-3 degrees, it doesn't sound very serious until you realize it's disrupting our weather patterns. So we can't predict when we're going to have rain. We can't predict when to plant food. These are all problems that are accumulating and literally consuming the future that we should be leaving for our children.
Now, your pickets outside the Gauteng legislature are going to take place every Friday without fail, but up until when, or up until what happens?
Until the government responds in a way that to us seems commensurate with the situation we are in. What I want to add to that, having a protest outside government's office is just the tip of the iceberg of what we're about. It's very visible, but it's part of us coming together, people from different classes, different organizations, different backgrounds, saying we are willing to stand up and fight for the kind of future that is worth having.
The question might be, why would you choose to protest outside a provincial legislature? Why not national government? Why not go to the union buildings? And how big a group or how big a crowd is it going to be? Because there's something interesting that you also put in your statement, that while your protests are non-violent, but you are going to have to be forced to create disruption in order to exert pressure. What kind of disruption would we be looking at?
That remains to be seen. What's interesting about Extinction Rebellion is we don't have leaders. And there's very interesting reasons for that. We try to have leadership that is spread through the organization. So the organization dynamically adjusts to what is happening all the time. We're growing exponentially at the moment. We've been to national government. We've been to the Department of Minerals and Energy. We have begun engaging in a conversation there. But like I said previously, the situation is so serious, the emergency is so serious, that we need action on every level, from the individual through to the global. That means we also need to talk to the provincial government. They need to come on board. We need to speak to our city councils. We need to speak to our residents' associations. We need to speak to our local organizations. And give this, it's easy to ignore trouble when they're staring you in the face, but usually that kind of denial does not work out very well.
Disruption, you haven't answered that element.
Disruption is one of the tools we can use to force people like government to come to the party and start acting up. The problem with government is with an electoral cycle, what tends to happen is the can gets kicked down the road. Those are one of the things that we want to change through having our 3 demands. The first demand is a state of emergency. The following demands, and that's about telling the truth. The second demand is about acting now. So there we want to rapidly reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, because we know that every little bit of fossil fuel that we use pumps greenhouse gases into the atmosphere that is increasing the temperature of our future, creating this kind of havoc. But very importantly, our third demand is for a citizens' assembly to be put in place to guide government on the decisions, the very difficult and potentially politically toxic decisions that will have to be made to deal with the situation. We want to bring together people from different walks of life that actively represent the broad population to eliminate the influence that lobby groups and corporate and post-colonial exploitative practices have in place to manipulate government. And the only way we can do that is by getting people on board and to use the force of the people to start making it difficult for government to pretend that business as usual is okay. So the actual dynamics of the disruption, change is coming. What we have to do is decide, do we want to have that change just happen to us, or do we want to have an input and some influence on what the character or the type of that change is going to be?
All right. ANDRÉ Clement, you'll be holding your picket outside the Gauteng legislature starting from today.
And we invite everyone to come and join us.
All right. Thank you very much. He's from an organization calling itself Extinction Rebellion.